Hey everyone, this is Dave Foy, your host at the Ops Mastermind podcast. I was recently interviewed on Beyond the Wrench by Jay Goninen, and it was such a great interview, and we talked about some really cool stuff that I thought I would upload that onto my podcast and allow you to have a listen to that also. So take a listen. It's Jay Goninen and Dave Foy talking fixed ops and mindset and a lot of other things on Beyond the Wrench. Make sure you share, like, comment, all that great stuff for both Jay and I.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Beyond the Wrench with Jay Goninen from Find the Wrench.
Welcome to Beyond the Wrench. I am your host, Jay Goninen. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Dave Foy to the podcast. Dave is currently the Service and Parts Director for Prime Motor Group and has a load of experience in the car dealership world. On top of that, Dave is the founder of the Fixed Ops Mastermind group that brings industry experts together to help them learn. I met Dave at the Ted Ing's Fixed Ops Roundtable. I believe it was at the very first one in New York City, and got to know him through the rest of those roundtable sessions. I can tell you that Dave is extremely passionate about this business and does an awesome job of helping make our industry better. Welcome to the podcast, Dave. How are you doing today?
I am excellent. I couldn't be better. Thank you for having me. We did indeed meet at the original Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Yes, I was trying to remember that. I wasn't sure if it was that one or the next one, but yes, you're right.
Yeah, no, it was definitely the first one in a very crowded little boardroom. So.
And warm, right?
Oh man. I thought I was being
warm.
Smart getting a seat at the table, but it was a bad idea.
It was warm and we were pretty loud. I remember having the other people in the office building coming over and telling us that we needed to quiet down. So it was a good first event. I think we all learned from it, and just a really good group of really smart people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for the most part, a core group that has continued to come together at Ted's events. So
yeah, it's fun. I think that's the cool part about it. And I'm actually going to have Ted on here in a few episodes, and I think the cool part about that was there was some kind of some type of chemistry between all of us that kind of showed up there that first time in New York City. And really, it's fun to see how well everybody has supported one another and really kind of really engaged with each other. And to me, it's just a really cool group and something that Ted did a really, really good job at kind of producing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to get together with other fixed ops people, but you're right. There was, Ted put that on with really no expectations of of what it was going to be, and it went really well, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool. So, give us a little bit of your background. I guess I'd probably start with how did you get into the industry in the first place? Like, what got you into this crazy business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was actually in high school, not a terrific student, smart enough to get myself by without doing a lot of studying, just barely by. I'm not talking A's and B's here.
I was the same way. I get it,
Dave. And so I had actually signed up for, it was called the Computer Maintenance Program. It was an early computer repair program at a community college that was spearheading it. And it was, at the time, was a leader in the nation for producing computer techs. And my dad, realizing how great of a student I was like, you realize there's a lot of math in this program. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good at math, which I had clearly shown through high school. And so they were at this, and my dad worked at this college, by the way. So he had heard about a new program that was coming in from Ford Motor Company called the Asset Program. And he said, why don't you just at least go and just see what they have to say? So I went to a presentation at the school from Ford. They put up this really glamorous slideshow of us in lab coats. And, we're just, so you're going to diagnose the vehicle, you're going to plug it in, you're going to figure out the computers, and you're going to shuffle it on to somebody else to fix it. At the time, back in 87, you're going to come out of school making $60,000 a year, and it's only going to go up from there. And it was like, I was hooked. I was sold. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. I get to deal with cars all day and electronics. I'm in. So I signed up that way. And then you realize the automotive business is not about white lab coats. And and so I became a tech, and I was a tech for 4 or 5 years or so. I was not a very good tech. I'm much better at the standing back and looking at what the guys are doing. And I'm really great at being able to help them diagnose cars. But when I was in it, I couldn't get my head around things. I'm much better on the outside. So I went from doing that to being an advisor, and have just grown from there up through pretty much every position, other than an actual parts counter person. So.
Well, that's interesting, because that's very similar to my background, right? I was not a strong high school student. I also got the white lab coat presentation to go to tech school, and how glorious it was. But I grew up in the car business, so it was always kind of, I kind of knew what it was regardless. But going into it and then coming out of it thinking, okay, you know what, I've done this for a long time, I should be pretty good at it. And then just being really bad at it was very, very humbling. So I totally get where you're coming from. And I think that's maybe a part of, as you go into management and go into other roles, and I always say this about myself, is where you have that appreciation for techs that I don't think others do, where how hard of a job that is. It's not just go out and, you know how to do everything right off the bat. It's a challenge. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And every time if I go into a new dealership or if I'm interviewing guys, I always make sure that I tell them that what I say is I wasn't born in a management seat. I came up through the ranks. I've done the job that I'm asking you to do. And it definitely gives you an appreciation for what they're going through. Definitely gives me more patience with the newer guys and the younger guys, where some other people get frustrated when they forget an oil cap, and it's like, right, there's a lot of moving parts to what they're doing. And, until they develop their own system, stuff like that happens. So it definitely helps. Yeah. And one thing that I noticed over the years too, was that just developing that confidence right off the bat, right? Where they're afraid to make a mistake, and they're afraid that, hey, if I leave that oil cap off, I'm going to blow up the engine, or, if I leave the oil plug out, I'm going to blow up the engine, and then I'm going to get fired. And like, it just, that plays out in their mind because they haven't built up enough credibility yet. So I think they're working scared to start off with. And that's not a good recipe for success a lot of times. Yeah, no, that definitely not. And that's why another conversation that once they're in the building that I have is, mistakes happen. We expect them to happen. They're going to happen every single day. Obviously we want to mitigate what those mistakes are, but they're going to happen. And if you do, like you said, work scared all the time, and you keep yourself from trying to make mistakes, you tend to make more mistakes. You do. They compound. Yes, they do. And it's frustrating. And I've seen some good, smart, talented people go down the wrong path because of that. And it's tough to watch. But so tell me a little bit about your role right now. What is it that you're doing right now? And obviously you've got a lot of things going on, as I mentioned in the intro, and we'll dive into the Fixed Ops Mastermind group after we kind of go through some of this. But tell me a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis, and kind of just walk us through a day in the life of Dave Foy. You you got it. We'll start from after I walk the dogs, though. So I'm the service and parts director at a dealership for Prime. It's a Ford dealership. I took this job my dad became ill a few months ago. More than a few months ago. But I was running the several stores for the 24 group, and I took this job because it's 11 minutes from my house. My dad lived right next door to me, so that made it very easy to be able to be there to help out my parents. So it's turned out to be a great move. Great company. First time that I've worked for a corporate, company. They're owned by an investment company, so I really expected it to be more of an ABC, these are the processes type of place, and it's not like that. Wow. Which is when I first got there, I was trying to do something, and I reached out to my boss and said, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about," and he said, "It's your store, Dave. Do what you need to do." Wow. So I was like,
"You don't get that very often, do you?"
That's awesome. No. Yeah, so. Yeah. It's been a challenge, nonetheless. Even having that freedom. It's a store that has been broken for a very long time. It's a brand new building, just turned a year old. So obviously there's the pressure from corporate over the fact that they just built a $14 million facility to get things going. But unfortunately, they went from a 100-year-old dealership facility, and they just brought all of that into a brand new building. I don't mean equipment-wise. I mean culture-wise, thinking-wise, all of that came over. It was not done properly when it was done, and because of that, unfortunately, it was turnover, manager after manager after manager after advisor after. So customers. When I started there 5 months ago, customers were like, as soon as they came in the door, they were mad. As soon as they get in there, like they were expecting that you were going to treat them badly.
Oh no.
Yeah. So 5 months later, it's nice. The phones aren't ringing all day long with people that just want to scream at you. And it's a big change. But when I started there, it was I just looked at this the other day. I think I had 5 repair orders that were over 200 days, or 6 repair orders over 200 days, and 5 of those cars were actually cars that still needed to get work done.
Really? That's good. Yeah. That's really good.
No, over 200 days.
Over 200 days.
Over 200 days.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Yeah. Going on almost a year.
Oh my God.
sitting in the parking lot.
I definitely wasn't thinking that.
Yeah. And there was a big giant repair order rack next to the area that the shop foreman dispatched from. And I've since taken that rack away because I called it the rack where ROs go to die, because they'd order parts for something or listen to a noise, not sure what it was. They would throw it in that rack, and that was it. Nobody would touch it again. And customers would call and yell and scream, and advisors would quit. So then now somebody else is handling it. And it was tough, but it's much better now. Obviously to get your reputation back with the public takes a while. So, we still got work to do there, but, the customers believe now that we're actually there to try and take care of them. And the culture in the shop, as I've explained to them over and over again, is we are here for the customer. First and foremost, for the customer. That's it. Everything else will follow that. Yeah. You want to make money? Great. Take care of the customer, and we can make money. But don't take care of the customer, and none of us have jobs. So.
Yeah, that's I think that's huge. And I've seen dealers not handle it that way, and it does create. I mean, it's amazing to me how fast that change happens, right? You can lose that respectability. You can lose that customer touch overnight, or with one person in a dealership or any business for that matter. If you have a kind of a sour apple that is that's not treating people right. And I think that's a big testament to you to get that turned around that fast. 6 months is not a long time to be able to kind of come in, get control, especially when there was turnover, prior to that, where it makes it really, really tough to get any level of consistency if there's just constant turnover. And if there's constant turnover, then it makes it harder to get good people, because the industry's not that big. So people understand that there's, if there's a lot of turnover somewhere, there's a reason why there's a lot of turnover somewhere. And so I give you a lot of credit for coming in and kind of grabbing that by the horns, because that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it's I'm a culture guy. That's what helps to build anything. It's funny because this dealership is almost literally across the street from the Nissan store that I spent 5 years with.
Okay.
When I started at that store, they had been last in CSI in their district for 3+ years running. And I mean, every month they were 12 out of 12 for 3+ years running. They never moved out of that position. And in 11 months, we were number one. So,
Wow.
and it's the same thing, it's building that culture. It's making sure that the team understands that they can trust me, that I'm there to help them make a better living.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to hurt them. I'm going to provide the cover fire from the higher ups to be able to get stuff done. And once you can build that trust with them, then they can concentrate on taking care of the customer. They don't have to worry about all the other peripheral crap.
So walk me through when you walk into a new shop or a new situation and you're looking at that culture. Walk me through that process a little bit, because are you studying it first and seeing what you've got, or do you go in with a plan right away, or kind of walk me through kind of that process of how you attack that?
Yeah. So typically, yes, I have a plan, but the plan is backburnered until I can kind of get to know who's there. So I try to come in quietly. I tend to not say a lot. I go around and I have conversations with individuals, and I try to let them lead the conversation so that I can feel out whether this is a person that truly cares.
Yeah.
This is a person that cares but has just been mistreated, or this is a person that just doesn't care. And I start to make my decisions on who's going to stay, who isn't going to stay. And I try to do it quietly, because this may come out the wrong way, but it's much more intimidating that way.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in as the good buddy, but I also don't want to come in as the absolute bad guy.
Yeah. The chopping block of I'm getting rid of everybody. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just kind of come in quietly. So it's intimidating in the way they don't know whether am I the guy that's just going to fire everybody, or am I the guy that is just going to make friends and let everybody do what they want. So.
Right.
And that is very intentional, because that's what I want. I don't want them to really know what I'm about until I can get to know them a little bit.
Sure. I think that's smart.
Yeah. And then from there, you can figure out what your plan is going to be, whether you need to lean to the side of being the really tough guy, or whether you can lean to the side of just build relationships a little more and bring people, into the fold. So
that's great information. And I think that's so true. And if I could have gone back to my time in leading service and parts departments, and one of the things that I wish I would have done differently was communicated that to what my plan was to ownership ahead of time, right? Because I think when I came into my first big kind of director role, I came in and they're expecting results like that first month, right? And they're like, well, the P&L says this, and we're not performing there yet. And I'm like, I don't even know these people's names yet. Like, how do I know how to manage these people or plan for these people? It's great to have that plan, but there's so much that goes into that I don't think people understand. And even just as simple as remembering people's names is really, really difficult, especially in a big dealership setting where, you're trying to understand their names and their personalities. And like you say, do you care? And I love what you said about, do you care, but maybe you just haven't been treated right so far, and they have a legit case about that. Feeling that out is underestimated, and it takes a lot more time than I think people think it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because obviously you can talk to somebody who seems to not give a crap. And look, I have to understand from their perspective. They've seen 5, 6, 7 of me walk in the door. To them in 4 or 5 months, I'm gone.
Right.
So what is there for them to grasp onto me and do what I'm asking them to do, if they think I might be gone, if they think I might leave. So that's why you've got to build that relationship and build that trust, and definitely ownership needs to know what your plan is. And I may not spell that out exactly like I just did to you.
Yeah.
But I'm big on telling them that it's a big ship, and those big ships take time to turn. and it's not going to change in a month or 2 months. It's going to take some time. And even once we build the culture, from going from building the culture to now building the gross profit machine,
Yeah.
you've got to now shift into another mode, which is where we've shifted to now. Now we've got the culture right. Now we need to shift into building gross profit and making money for the dealership.
So, I mean, you're essentially setting your foundation. So yeah, like setting a good, clean foundation. So you're ready to go moving forward. Right. And that's,
Correct.
I'm assuming, is that a big piece of your gross profit machine? Is that piece? I mean, that's got to be in place, I'm assuming, before you can really take off with anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because when we started this, I said, it's got to be about the customer, and everybody has to be on that same page. You all have to be focused on taking care of that customer, and everybody has to understand what their role is in that. Advisor wise, I'm not the guy who is going to restrict them from using service policy or make them have to come get me for a password to use service policy. I'll explain to you what I want you to use it on, and you use your discretion. And if you did it in a way that I wouldn't have, we'll talk about it, and then we'll go forward. If you do it again, we'll have a different conversation. But the first time, as long as you can communicate to me that you were doing what you did to help a customer, and not, I totally screwed up an estimate, so I gave them, $200 off the bill. But rather, whatever this person was, whatever the story is, this person was stranded, 500 miles from home, and so I did it at a lesser labor rate to be able to help them, and all that stuff. I'm fine with all that stuff. Do what's right for the customer, but you've got to get everybody rowing the boat in that direction. They've got to know that they can do what's right for the customer, and from there, your gross profit machine can go. Without that part of the foundation, you can't. You can make money short term, but long term, you will not. You won't have the retention. You won't have those people coming back that already trust you. You don't have to build the trust with them to sell value in what you do. That's a big part of it.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think it really goes back to what we started the conversation with too, with allowing people to make a mistake and not just beating them over the head with it, or not leveraging it every time you talk to them. Well, that one time, Timmy, you screwed up this. Once you start doing that, like it's over. Like they don't want to be there anymore. And I think that approach that you're taking with that team is phenomenal. I think that's great. So let's say we get through the foundational side, the building the foundation of culture. What comes next? Like then you start to focus on profitability. Then you start to focus on the business itself.
Yeah. So from there, now we can make a concentration on making sure that we're setting our schedule up properly. Number one, that we've got the right mix of work coming in, that advisors understand how to present a menu to a customer, and that they present the menu 100% of the time to that customer. That technicians understand you've got to do a multi-point 100% of the time. I don't care if the car was in the day before. That's the value that we provide our customers, as well as obviously a giant liability release for us. But it's everybody has to. Obviously, I'm from New England. I'm a Belichick guy. Everybody has to do your job. That's it. Do your job. The advisors want to complain that a tech didn't do a multi-point. Just bring it to me. I'll go talk to the tech. The tech wants to complain that the advisor never sells what they bring them, so that's why they won't do a multi-point. That's all just snowballs on itself and doesn't get us anywhere. So you do your multi-point. You make sure you sell what's on the multi-point, and everybody lets the customer decide what they want to do. And so those are, once you have that customer-centric culture in place, those conversations are much, much easier, because you can focus all of those conversations on the customer. Like the customer is expecting us to give them a multi-point. The customer is expecting you to explain to them what the technician put on the multi-point. So that's the next part of it, and obviously from that starts to drive the gross profit. Once you getting your reputation back, so that every survey isn't a struggle, and getting people to text to do the the right thing with the multi-points and getting advisors to do the right thing and explaining that to the customers, everything starts on the upward track.
That's hard to do. And I will say, you brought up the being from New England and the Northeast part. For those of my friends that are in the Midwest or on the West Coast or, wherever you're at in the country, I will say getting chewed out by somebody from the Northeast, it hits differently, right? Like that's not a normal ass chewing. That's you're probably, when you're coming in there, that's some, you get some interesting language.
We're a little higher strung, I think, than the rest of the country for some reason. It's probably this rotten weather.
I got some great friends from the Northeast, from the Boston area, from New York area, and I always give them hell about that because I'm like it. I've got some bad butt chewings over the years, but I think in my Hall of Fame of butt chewings, it's probably been the Northeast that really got me.
Yeah, we have a way of composing a sentence that only contains swear words. So.
Oh, that's why I love everybody in the Northeast. It's good stuff. So once you start to get that rolling, right? You go through the training, you go through a really of the multi-point inspection, then how you sell that or how you present it to a customer. What do you do to keep them accountable to that or hold them accountable to that? Because obviously they are going to make some mistakes like we talked about in the past, but if you've got somebody that just blatantly doesn't follow process or is somewhat rogue in general, how do you handle a situation like that?
So obviously you're going to try to bring them into the fold. You're going to do your normal consultations with them, verbal warnings, written warnings if you have to. You're going to try to do everything you can to coach that person to be the team member that you hope they can be. One of the things that is sometimes effective with them, depending on the personality, is you almost make them I'm going to say a player. It's not the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
But it would basically it would be it would be a Jay. Look, I need your help on this. I need your help with making sure that we get multi-points going. I got some young guys over there that. They don't think it's that important. You and I know how important it is. I know it's a pain in the ass to do them, but I need your help to get this done, to set the example for them, and try to put it on them. Like, hey, I'm helping those guys.
Yeah.
Do a better job and things. Depending on that person's personality, if they're a half decent human being and want to be somebody that helps somebody, they're probably going to come around.
Yeah.
And honestly, Jay, if they're not someone who wants to come around, then you gotta know when to cut bait.
Yeah.
You gotta know when to get rid of somebody, because a cancer in the shop will kill that culture that you're trying to build.
Yes, they will. And it doesn't matter how good of a tech they are. I mean,
Nope.
that's the tough part, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
you get a really, really good A-level tech that can do anything, but nobody can work with them. It makes life miserable for everybody. And it is one of the hardest decisions you'll ever come to, in that you see somebody that's just producing like a rock star and just does everything right, except the personal side. Right. And like just the attitude. And that's one thing I would try to say to any tech that's listening to this podcast is, one area when I was managing technicians that I always thought that you could just set yourself over and above what everybody else is doing is strictly on attitude. Like being able to do the small things, whether it's an A-tech picking up a broom, and granted, we don't want an A-tech sweeping all the time by any means, but to lead by example that, hey, my bay is clean, everything is organized, and if you want help, let me know what you need help on, to an extent. But really be a team player, and it can help. And I think so often we get tied to, well, I'm paid on flat rate and I'm not going to help anybody because that's not how I'm paid to do my job. And I totally get that part, because you're trying to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other end, you can make life so much easier for yourself to, when you go ask somebody for help,
Right.
If as long as you're not treating them like a prick, like you
Mhm.
can, you,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think it's reciprocal, right? Like, I
Yeah.
think if you treat people good, they're going to come back and treat you well.
Yeah, and I really believe in karma,
Yeah.
and you know, when I was a poor tech and poor as in my work quality, not
Same here. I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
the guy that worked next to me who had been in the business for 30 years was, you know, the electronic genius who would watch me struggle on something and then come over and go, hey, did you check that? And fix the car in 3 seconds.
Yes.
I still remember to this day him saying to me when one day there was nothing going on in the shop, and he said, "Pick up a broom and sweep." And I said, "I'm flat rate." And he said, "Pick up a broom and sweep. You'll be a better man for it."
Oh, I love that. I
And I
love
was like,
that.
"Okay."
I,
And you know, from that day on, if there was nothing going on, yeah, I cleaned up. I don't walk by stuff in the shop, in the parking lot. If there's something there, I pick it up. You know,
yes.
it's
Man, that
it's
gets
a
me
big
pumped up.
difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah,
that to me, that's what techs don't understand in a lot of cases. And where, in my experience, the best of the best, and they didn't even know they were doing it when they were doing it, but they leave like a legacy behind, right? And I look at it, a tech that was one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life, regardless of position, regardless of education, regardless of whatever, just a really sharp guy. And unfortunately, he passed away probably a couple years ago. And he'll always have an impact on my life just because of how willing he was to help me, even as his manager, to go through and show me things. And if I didn't understand a certain way something worked, to be able to walk through it. And I just, he had such a grace about him of doing that and being so selfless. And everybody respected him. You know, when he went to retire, and honestly, like when he passed away, he left a legacy behind that's going to last for a long time. And same thing with, you know, you, I don't think people understand that whole legacy thing. I think they always think it's like, okay, what did I do in business or what did I do here? But truly,
yeah.
how you leave people behind in terms of what they think of you and how you made them feel is such a big impact. And I don't think some of these techs understand how big of an impact they have on other people's lives.
Yeah, and not just techs, honestly. I mean, it's you know, advisors. It's guys sitting in my seat that just want to pound on the desk and yell and get some stuff done. You know, this business is a people business for us handling the customers, but also for us handling our team. And you know, that legacy gets left behind by those techs because of their attitude. They
Yeah.
sometimes they appear better techs than they are because their attitude is so great, because they were
Yes.
the guy who always helped. And you know, those things, you're right, that go unnoticed a lot of times, and they go a lot further than the guys think. You know,
Yeah.
if you're genuinely you are a good person, you will leave that legacy on that shop, and you don't have to be the super A tech, you know, to be able to do that. You just got to be a good guy,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know.
I totally believe that. And I think that that's what sets your culture up. You know, when you talk about going into a shop, is if you get some leadership in the shop, and when I say leadership, some of your top techs in the shop, and not even necessarily just that A-level electrical genius, but you know, somebody that's a career B-level tech, or you know, whatever it is, but they set a standard of culture that it's so high that if somebody comes in that doesn't meet that culture, they know it immediately. Like, I'm
Hmm.
not going to fit in here. And that's where core building pieces of your shop are so vital, because if you don't get those first those leaders in your shop right, it's hard to build any culture
Right.
that's not bad moving
Hmm.
forward.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, because then the guys in your shop, rather than being guys who are helping to build the foundation, are the wrecking balls who are swinging around trying to knock down what you're trying to build. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Man,
the cult.
this is good. I love this stuff. Like, this is this, I could talk about this all day, but let's kind of move on to the Fixed Ops Mastermind group, and give me an idea of what gave you, like, what inspired you to start the Fixed Ops Mastermind group, and then walk me through and maybe explain to our audience here a little bit of like what it is.
Hmm. Yeah, so I wanted to start the group because I always say I want to leave this industry a little bit better than I found it. I'm not naive enough to think that I'm going to be, the Gandhi of the automotive industry, and I'm going to completely change something. But to at least know that I played a small part in making this industry a little bit better, helping somebody along the way. My initial idea for it was honestly because I wanted advisors and managers to be able to get some training through talking to other people who have been there so that they don't have to bash their head against a wall for 30 years like I did to try and figure out how to do this job.
Yeah.
Because the service side of the business does not. People can talk about how fixed ops is the big thing now. That's great, but there's still film crews in the showroom filming commercials. They're not they're not in the shop. So, the money still isn't there to train the fixed ops people who deal with more customers than a sales department does in a year than we do in a month. So I wanted to provide some information and some help for those guys. What it is kind of morphed into, and although over the last month or so we've had advisors joining up, it was more people who were a little bit further along in their career. And I mean, I'll say probably the average was probably about 10 years of how long people have been in there. But it just became a great group of people who would get together. We usually have an expert come on that talks about some specific subject, and then we have some discussion around that. And it's a great group of people who are helping everybody else through the same things that we're all going through. But you get to see it from a different set of eyes. All of us are guilty of being stuck in the weeds at times, and you can't see that forest through the trees,
right?
Because you're in it. And sometimes just talking about what you're doing in the shop, and it's not working, and you have somebody like a Mike Vogel who's sitting on the call listening and going, "Hey, have you tried this?" And you're like, "Wow, geez, I never even thought of doing that." And it might be the most simple thing, which is why I called it a mastermind, because that was to go back to Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill. You put all those brains together and they come up with better solutions than you do alone. And from there, it's kind of grown. We've got on the website, we've got a private community area for all the members, and all the old sessions are all there so they can watch them. We're building a digital library of information and, pay plans from all over the country and things that guys struggle with all the time, just to try and help them through and make this business a little bit easier to deal with than just having to seek out the information always all on your own.
Yeah, and you've got some smart people on there. You speak to Mike, and obviously Mike is one of the smartest people I feel like in this business and in this industry. He's a sharp guy. So and I think there's value in that community learning in general. How often do you go to a training, or you go to a seminar, or you go to a conference, and you get as much value out of the people you meet there as you do the actual training or the actual, the actual conference itself. And it's there's so much value in that. And I think when you get passionate people together to talk about things, that's when stuff happens, and that's when ideas happen. And I don't know. I commend you for that, because I think that's a really, really cool way of approaching it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's way more work than I ever thought it was going to be. I can tell you that. for an hour a week, it takes up a lot of my week to get it put together, but it's well worth it. We this past Tuesday, some guys have been asking, does anybody hang out after the session and just to talk? And I was like, nobody does, but we can. Nothing's stopping us from doing it. So we did the Fixed Ops Mastermind after hours this past week, and I got to, I think there were 30 something people that were on the call, and 18 of them stayed for the after hours, and we literally talked for an hour and a half after. So the session was an hour. We talked for another hour and a half. So 2.5 hours sitting in front of a Zoom call. But that hour and a half was amazing. There were a couple of guys that represent vendors there. So we talked about, how their products work and things, and, just had a discussion about a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't business related. And it's, like you said, that community. It was really cool to do. So we're going to start making that a regular thing. We're going to have the after hours for anybody who wants to hang out afterwards. And we started that on Cinco de Mayo to be
fitting, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So where do you see, and I know in some of the roundtables that you and I have taken part in, this has been a big hot topic for discussion, but where do you see the industry going in the future? And when I say that, dealerships as a whole, service departments as a whole, what do you see as we're moving forward? And I know that's a vague question, but I think it's there's a lot of change happening, and especially as we record this, we're coming out, or hopefully coming out of coronavirus here at some point. But what do you see for change coming up that we're going to have to adapt to?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, if you'd asked me that question a few months ago, it might be a different answer than you get now. But I keep saying that the disruption that everybody has been talking about. The disruption that everybody's been talking about has been brought to your doorstep, and so now it's a matter of, are you going to embrace it and do something with it, or are you going to be the person that says, "Oh yeah, coronavirus ruined my business,"
right.
And I'd much rather be the person that's embracing it and trying to get out there and expand rather than contract during this. How it's going to change is probably how it should have changed long ago, which is to become more customer focused, to understand what our customers actually want. We talked about this on the mastermind this past week, was that dealerships have built these Taj Mahal dealerships and put nail salons and ice cream shops and all this stuff in the dealerships, and it's a place that people don't want to wait. They don't want to be there.
Yeah.
But we keep building things to bring them there and keep them there for hours. And it's like we're doing it out of customer experience, right? We want to solve the customer experience. It's not what they want.
No.
And you didn't need to look very far. Look at a Jiffy Lube or an NTB where the customer's sitting in a school chair next to a pile of tires, and they chose them over your Taj Mahal dealership with the ice cream shop. It's that's not the customer experience they're after. They just want to be treated well, be treated fairly, feel like they can trust you.
Yeah.
And that's what we should have been doing all along.
You're right.
That's what builds our retention. That's what builds a customer base that comes back to you. And that's where the business needs to go. And hopefully it continues. But I think they're realizing that now. Hopefully it continues to go after this stuff starts to go away, and that we continue to take care of our customers. And if that's through more mobile service, if that's through more pickup and deliveries, whatever it is, I mean, we've got to have the offerings there, but we need to give the customer what they're asking for.
I agree. And that I equate it to, like, if one of us, and a lot of us have been in the industry so long that we're probably kind of numb to some of this, and that's not a good thing.
Right.
But I equate it to like going to sit at the doctor's office, and the doctor's normally like 15 minutes later than they say they're going to be. And I don't care how nice that doctor's office is, I don't want to be there. Like there's nothing that would make me want to be there. And I think there's some level of the customer experience that is similar at a dealership, where that's, you see people with massage chairs and like all of this other fancy stuff, and nobody's going to take their shoes off and just like kick back and relax. Like I hope not anyways, but we're trying to build these showrooms like that. And
right.
I think you're spot on. What do you see as a way? I know Brian Benstock talked about this out at the Fixed Ops Roundtable and even the last virtual one, but that going to the customer, how do you envision that happening? Or is it picking up their vehicles and bringing it back? Is it mobile service? Is it kind of a combination of everything? How do you see that like developing?
Yeah, I think that has to be a combination. There's no black and white in this industry. It's just a bunch of shades of gray, and you need to know what your customers want, and be able to deliver that to them. I think what Brian has built is amazing, but not many of us are in that. In fact, I don't know if there is another metro like that in the world.
Not Manhattan.
Yeah. So, kudos to him. He's a visionary, and he's built something amazing, but that level doesn't work in the dealership that doesn't have a city for 30 miles.
Right.
You don't have the Uber or Lyft support system that's around you to make that happen. Now, that's not to say that you can't pick up and deliver vehicles. You just need to find a different way to do it. As far as the mobile service thing, I think there's a lot of ways that can play out. And I think there's a lot of ways dealerships can capitalize on that. Everybody has some decent sized companies around that have parking lot full of employee cars every day. To be able to offer to that company rather than an individual person, to be able to offer it to a company as a service that you're going to come and service cars at their dealership, at their company.
Yep.
Well, why their employees are still working. There's a big benefit to a company there to keep people. Now that employee doesn't need to either fake call in sick to go get their car serviced, or come in late or leave early to go pick their car up or whatever. It's getting serviced while they're right there at work. And that's a benefit to the company. So you could probably subsidize their maintenance repairs through the company because of your extra productivity that you're going to get.
Right.
There's a lot of ways that the mobile service can play out and help people other than just the typical vision of going to somebody's house and changing their oil in the driveway.
Right. So based on your experience with other dealerships and maybe just even with your own dealerships, and this is a really, really vague guess, but how many are prepared to do mobile service? Or percentage wise? Are there that many?
I don't think you're. I don't know if there's enough zeros to after the decimal point to make that percentage. It's a very small number.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of dealerships that are prepared to go and do that. And I say that as Ed Roberts is putting his third van out on the road.
Smart.
He's killing it. But a lot of companies are not. And I'd love to be able to get into that business, but it's a big investment when you start. I mean, even if you're going to use a used van, the price of that van and building that out is still 40, 50 grand.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of service that you're going to do to recoup that cost.
When you're hauling fluids and you're doing, there's some of that hazard side, the insurance side, that's a little different. And I had a little bit of experience with that because I was on the equipment side of the business where that's really, really prevalent, right? Where you go out to work on heavy machinery or on farm machinery or whatever. And it's a process to get a van built or a truck built to go do those repairs. It's not like you just send somebody out in a truck and say, good luck. You have to recover the oil properly. You have to do it cleanly so you're not leaking oil on the ground or, there's a lot that goes into it. And it's not as easy, I don't think, as it sounds, but you're starting to see other companies come up that are not of factory brands, right? Of aftermarket brands that are coming in and setting up businesses solely around that mobile service, right? And I think there's, it started in fleets more so than like kind of automotive, but you're starting to see more of that. And I think from a dealership standpoint, that's something to keep a really, really close eye on because that could be something that makes a major impact. And how much business comes out of general maintenance based on inspections and everything like that. If you start losing that battle, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah. I mean, we're already losing 70% of our customers to the aftermarket after they get out of warranty.
Yeah.
So you're going to take that 30% that's left and lose even more than that even before they're out of warranty because these guys are coming to their house or again, coming to their work to get the vehicle serviced and they don't need to miss any time from any, a kid's baseball game to an hour at work. They miss out on nothing and they get their car serviced. That's
a big deal. What do you see for dealerships fighting for that service business now? I mean, when I say that, I think even up to probably 5 years ago, there was a lot of lip service on how important the aftermarket was to a dealership, right? And they the owner would go out and say, yeah, we've got a great service department, but then that their bread and butter is sales, and that that's what they are passionate about, and that it's what they grew up on, right? Whereas the backside of the business isn't always as sexy. And now that, like, I think people are starting to wake up to, especially from the dealership world, of, oh my gosh, the aftermarket's taking some of this business, and then, oh my goodness, that business is really profitable and it's going out the door. So do you see a shift in attitude, or do you still think there's some level of just they're saying it to be politically correct?
I think there is a shift in attitude there, but I still think that there's a large lack of understanding from the front of the house as far as what gets done in the back, how it gets done, and the importance that it has on the retention for that customer coming back and buying a car from them again. I don't think that's fully understood or appreciated, and I mean, you look at, I lost my train of thought on that.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. But yeah, the shift is there. I mean, there's definitely, look, I'm grateful that people are talking about fixed ops now, and they are focusing more on it. We need to get more of an education. Most of the GMs out there have come up through the variable side of the house, and I have no interest in being a GM. I have no interest in working 6 days a week until 9 o'clock at night, and they can have that job all day long. But the GM that I have at my store will tell you, I don't really know fixed ops, but I want to learn it. So I'm going to be out here being involved, and I'm going to try to figure out what's going on and things. And that's great. I don't have a problem letting them in on the big secret of what we're doing.
But that's great, though, that I think that speaks a lot to your general manager, though, too, to be able to understand how important it is to the business, and that, hey, and to understand that, hey, I don't know everything about that side of the business. I want to learn about that side of the business. And
right.
And I think that's a great quality for a general manager to have, is not to assume, but ask questions and really get to know that side of the business, and really what is your most profitable side of your business. Like, how do you get hands-on with it and know that what you're doing is a good job, and that it's going to keep customers coming back, and that it's going to keep producing good revenue, good gross profit, good bottom line, there's a lot of value in knowing that. And I think, just from my experience, I agree with you in that the tide is turning a little bit. I wouldn't have probably said that 5 years ago. I didn't quite believe that 5 years ago, but you are definitely starting to see more of a focus on the aftermarket. And when I say aftermarket, more of the technicians, producing labor, and that being an actual sale, like you're selling labor time.
Right.
And I think people are starting to understand that more, and especially as new sales margins go down and they get tighter and tighter, and it's more competitive than ever. Everybody's got a similar vehicle that they can sell.
Yeah.
And from a dealership standpoint, the way that you can stand out from the crowd is your service, is the people that are in the dealership, and that's the difference between a commoditized thing and an actual, like, this is our unique differentiator. That
right.
We're better.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's how Amazon built a business, right? They don't have anything any different than you can go and pick up at Walmart or whatever store you're going to, but it's a lot easier to go and get it from Amazon than it is to actually take a trip to the store. And that's all they did was build the value machine. So, the technicians are the only guys that produce anything in a dealership. The rest of us are all expenses, all the way up to the dealer principal. That's all they are, is expenses. And the technicians actually produce something. They produce hours that get sold. So, I have a great appreciation for those guys. And it's good to finally see some spotlight coming back around to them, and for people to understand the value that they have to this industry.
Well, and I think that's a big testament to you, Dave, and what you do for the industry, and trying to, as you say, make it a better place, or make it better than when you got into it. I think that there's a there's a lot of really good people in this industry and in this business, and people like you with that enthusiasm really help us take that to the next level. And I think it's going to take a lot of Dave Foys to be able to drive the perception of the industry up, to drive the trust between the customer and the dealership up, and just overall paint a better picture for who we are. And I guess I tip my hat to you and what you're doing, because I think you're doing one hell of a good job at it. So I thank you for being on the podcast today. I think we're running up on our hour now, but I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for the industry, and we'll have to have you back on again here sometime soon.
Absolutely. Love to. Thanks for having me, Jay.